Welcome to today's episode. Today I'm diving into the Aerofly RC10 simulator, which I'm reviewing purely from the perspective of an aerobatic flyer. I'm not really into flying gliders or anything like that on the sim. I'm all about practicing IMAC and Freestyle. So I'm hoping the simulator will provide a significant improvement over real flight, which I've been using for over 20 years now. Real flight has a lot of loyal fans, and I do think it's been great for practicing freestyle and 3D flying. It's got a lot of custom aircraft available, and they really do improve the experience. But when it comes to IMAC, I've always felt that it feels short. I've never been able to get an aircraft to feel particularly good when simulating snap rolls. So that's something I'm really hoping that Aerofly RC10 improves upon. First off, the graphics are much better in Aerofly RC10. It runs smoothly and the aircraft models are more detailed. While the visuals aren't going to be what ultimately sells it to people, I do think they make a difference. People care about how things look, and it does make the experience more enjoyable. But at the end of the day, it is a training tool, and the physics will be what wins it out. Now, this footage you're seeing is actually a pretty early go at a IMAC Unlimited sequence with the included IMAC Slick. I was experimenting to get a feel of how it handles. I actually made a small adjustment where I added about 4 kilos as I felt the aircraft felt too floaty and too light initially, but that's made quite a positive improvement. The snap rolls are feeling quite realistic. There's a real sense of rotational inertia that I've never quite gotten from real flight. You can actually feel the aircraft stalling and the initial break of the snap. You experience when a wing loses lift. It's a really nice touch. You can even feel the over-rotation, something that I've never quite experienced with real flight. This aircraft tracks quite well, which is very good for practicing IMAC. The expo does feel a bit strange, but that'll be something that can be corrected with tweaking. Now, I'm not going to pretend that I'm a pro IMAC pilot by any means, but even just looking at my flying here, I can tell that the snap rolls feel quite a bit better in Aerofly RC10 than real flight. The response is much more natural, especially when executing maneuvers like the ones in this footage. On the other hand, there are some things actually about real flight that I still prefer, but the snap rolls are a real win here in Aerofly. One thing I have developed throughout years of trying to work on IMAX through the flight sim is that it does help to use a good transmitter and use things like logic conditions and snap conditions to get snap rolls feeling right and looking right on the sim. It'll always work quite different to how it does in real life, but just using a old Interlink X analog controller here, this is feeling quite good. When it comes to spins, I was interested to see how the simulator handled them. Unfortunately, it's quite a bit like real flight. Whilst the stall of the spin entry does maybe feel a little bit better, you still need to apply some aileron or the aircraft will just try to fly its way out of it. The doing an inverted entry spin felt quite good, but again, unfortunately, I had to use a bit of aileron. If you look at the sticks on the transmitter, unfortunately you can't see this entry very well because I flew out of frame, but you can see I'm using just a decent little amount of aileron to maintain the spin. So as far as IMAC is concerned, I'd say Aerofly RC10 is quite a big improvement over real flight, but it's not quite perfect. The next step after this is to have a look at how it is for freestyle and 3D flying. Unfortunately, this is where my opinion of the simulator has dropped quite a bit. Now for Freestyle I decided to try a few aircraft, including the 3D version of the same slick. But honestly the experience was a letdown. There was no feel of post-stall behaviour, and trying to do things like a rolling Harrier felt very mechanical and artificial. With real flight I have more of a sense of the aircraft responding naturally to post-stall conditions, but in Aerofly RC10 it felt far too predictable and stable. When I moved on to other aircraft, like the wonderful Velocity, it was the same story. No real stall behaviour, no feeling of the aircraft being on flying with the tail during certain maneuvers. It was just too stable and too predictable. When I compare this to real flight, I definitely prefer real flight for 3D flying. The 3D planes in Aerofly just don't have that same raw, unpredictable behaviour that makes 3D flying what it is. I also decided to try out the big 3-meter freestyle setup of the Yak, and again I have to say I was a little bit disappointed. They're a little bit better post-stall, but overall the experience was still quite lacking. The planes didn't feel like they were truly stalling or reacting in a natural way. Just didn't lock into maneuvers like a real plane would. One of the things I was hoping to see positive signs from when testing is the low-speed flight characteristics, but even that didn't feel realistic. I thought a good aircraft to test the stall characteristics would be the big 3-meter or something like that, P-38 F Lightning. Trying to push it beyond its limits just didn't work. There's no hint of high-speed stall, or anything felt remotely accurate. That kind of thing is crucial for realism. It's a part of what gives the excitement and the challenge of flying large, heavy-scale aircraft. It's unfortunately just very much missing in this sim. It actually is quite good in a inverted Harrier. It may actually feel better in an inverted Harrier than the 3D aircraft do, so I'm really not sure what that tells you. To wrap things up, while the simulator does have some really beautiful graphics and aircraft models, I'm just not convinced it's the right tool for freestyle or 3D practice. I think for IMAC it's a step up from real flight. When it comes to 3D, I'm going to stick with real flight for now. Of course I haven't spent hours tweaking the settings and modifying aircraft. It's possible the community out there has actually got this all worked out and knows how to make the aircraft more realistic. But as it comes out of the box, it's just not quite there for 3D flying. So is it worth the price? Well, it cost me a bit over $100 on Steam, and I'm still undecided. I may request a refund and wait for a sale before I commit to keeping it. For those who are thinking about getting it, it might be worth trying out, and if you're not happy you could always get your money back if you use Steam. I get that the target is niche market and the price point has to be a bit higher, but in its current state I'm not sure I'll be using it for regular. I'm not sure I would advocate buying it at the current price. That's all of today's thoughts on Aerofly RC10. I hope this gives you a bit of insight into the simulator from the perspective of someone who's been flying aerobatics for a while. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you next time.